What happens when one of country music's biggest superstars steps into the most unpredictable arena of daytime television? When Blake Shelton walked onto The View, he wasn't just showing up for another friendly interview. He was stepping into a battlefield, facing one of television's sharpest, most unfiltered hosts. What unfolded wasn't just a celebrity chat gone sideways. It became a masterclass in poise, a clash of perspectives, and a moment that would leave millions of viewers debating long after the cameras stopped rolling. This is the story of the day Blake Shelton faced Joy Behar, and the confrontation that shocked an audience, rattled the studio, and became one of live TV's most talked about moments. But before you see what happened, know this isn't gossip. This is a peek behind the curtain, when Hollywood polish melted away and a country boy from Oklahoma stood firmly, unapologetically himself. The morning started like any other episode of The View. Studio lights glimmered over the set. The audience buzzed with excitement. Crew members ran through their rehearsed routines. Blake Shelton, scheduled to promote his latest album and tour, walked in radiating the easy charm of Oklahoma. He tipped his cowboy hat, flashed that signature grin, and took his seat with effortless confidence. The applause was warm, genuine, everything appeared perfectly scripted. The hosts welcomed him with warmth. Whoopi Goldberg extended her typical professionalism. Sarah Haynes was beaming, ready to meet the musical icon. Even Sunny Host appeared happy to have him on set. Everything seemed to promise smooth sailing, light-hearted questions, casual banter, maybe a plug for The Voice. But one was noticeably quiet: the host Joy Behar. If you knew her, you could understand the look on her face, a predator smiling type, but within her elements. She was just waiting, loading the conversation like a weapon with the anticipation of just the right moment to strike. And Blake? He had no inkling of what was about to happen. The first few minutes were harmless enough. They talked about his new album, his role on The Voice, and life in Nashville. Blake's Oklahoma draw added charm to every answer. The audience laughed at his jokes, the hosts nodded along, and for one brief, fleeting moment, it felt just like another successful interview. Then came the shift. Joy Behar leaned in, voice sharp, slicing through the cordial atmosphere. Look who decided to grace us with his presence. Her smile was razor-edged. Blake Shelton, the voice of rural America, or should I say, a very specific part of rural America. Blake's smile never wavered, but his eyes cooled behind a slight adjustment in the energy. "Good morning to you, too, Joy," he said suavely. "It's always such a pleasure being here with you beautiful ladies." Joy waved her hand through the amenity. "Oh, cut the charm offensive, Blake. Let's get down to brass tacks about your recent comments on small-town values. You seem to think living in a small town automatically makes someone more moral, more patriotic than city folks." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi tried an interjection of conciliation, but Joy plunged ahead. Blake's rejoinder was slow and measured, his Oklahoma accent stretching out every word. "I never said that. What I said was small towns teach certain values: community, helping neighbors, working hard. I didn't say anyone was better than anybody else." "Oh, please," Joy shot back, her tone reeking with skepticism. "That's exactly what you implied. You country stars love to portray yourselves as the real Americans, while the rest of us, what? Fake Americans? We're just as American as you are, Blake." Blake's jaw tightened slightly, with his hands pressing on the armrests, though he managed to keep a straight and serious face. "Joy, I think you are putting words in my mouth that I never said. I respect all people no matter their background, whether they come from NYC or from a town of 3,000 people. Joy leaned in, rising to the challenge. Do you, though? Your music, your persona, it's built on this idea that real America lives out there in the heartland. And places like New York, or where I grew up, somehow don't count. The tension in the studio became palpable, almost tangible. The friendly morning vibe had evaporated. Every word, every glance, every pause carried weight. It was more than an interview now, it was a battle of ideals, a cultural collision, and the entire audience could feel it. The studio had fallen completely silent. The audience, once buzzing with excitement, now sat frozen, sensing they were witnessing something far beyond standard daytime TV. Camera operators exchanged nervous glances. In the control room, producers frantically gestured, unsure whether to let the confrontation continue or cut to commercial. Sarah Haynes tried to intervene, steering the conversation back toward Blake's music, but Joy Behar was relentless. Not even close to finished. You know what bothers me most about this small-town superiority complex? Joy's voice sharpened, her hands slicing through the air for emphasis. Her eyes locked on Blake, unyielding. You sit here judging the rest of us while raking in millions, singing about pickup trucks and dirt roads. You've been living in Hollywood and Nashville for decades. When was the last time you actually lived in the small towns you sing about? Blake's easygoing demeanor began to shift. His shoulders straightened, his posture stiffened. The relaxed, charming country boy was starting to crack. A harder, more determined edge emerged. Joy, he said, his tone steady but steel beneath the surface, I may live in Nashville now, but I haven't forgotten where I come from. I was raised in Ada, Oklahoma. Population 12,000. My dad worked construction. My mom ran a beauty shop. I know what it means to grow up in a place where everyone knows everyone. Joy didn't relent, her voice rising. And now you're worth hundreds of millions, Blake. Mansions, private jets, the whole 9 yards. Don't you think it's a little disingenuous to keep playing the common man card? Blake's famous disarming grin finally cracked, replaced by something raw, unpolished, and real. You know what, Joy? His voice changed entirely, gone was the politeness of a promotional interview. Just because someone becomes successful doesn't mean they forget their roots. I've been blessed, absolutely. But that doesn't change who I am or where I come from. And I'm proud of it. Joy leaned back, predator savoring the reaction she'd provoked. Proud enough to exploit it for profit, she shot back, eyes glinting with challenge. Your whole brand is built on this mythology, simple country folk versus sophisticated city people. Divisive, Blake. And honestly, it's getting old. The tension in the studio was palpable. Everyone felt it, the invisible charge building to a breaking point. Whoopi tried one last-ditch attempt to get the conversation onto much safer ground. Maybe we should talk about the tour. But Blake was done playing nice. Exploit it, he repeated, his voice rising for the first time, the anger unmistakable. Joy, I write and sing about my life, my experiences, the people I grew up with. That's not exploitation. That's authenticity. And if you can't tell the difference, maybe that says more about you than it does about me. A collective gasp did ripple through the studio. Even the cameraman froze. This wasn't banter anymore. This wasn't even a heated interview. This was full-scale confrontation, and Blake Shelton had just fired back with everything he had. Joy's eyes flashed hot with anger. Her hands were fisted on the desk in front of her. Authenticity, she spat the word. Give me a break, Blake. You're about as authentic as a $3 bill. A manufactured product, just like every other country star churned out by the Nashville machine. The audience gasped louder this time. The other hosts shifted nervously in their seats, exchanging worried glances. This had gone far beyond daytime television norms. Professional boundaries had been shattered. And then, in a move that stunned everyone, Blake stood up, slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the studio was on him. This wasn't just posture, it was a statement. It didn't matter that the cameras were rolling. At 6 feet 5 inches, Blake Shelton suddenly towered over the panel. His presence alone shifted the energy in the room. The cowboy had risen, and with that single movement, the balance of power in the confrontation changed entirely. You know what, Joy? Blake said in a controlled, deliberate tone, but beneath it a current of ice-cold fury ran. I've taken your shots because I respect this show, and I respect most of the people on it. But I am not going to sit here and let you attack my character or my integrity. Joy didn't waste a second. She stood, too, not about to give an inch. Ooh, did I hit a nerve? It hurts, doesn't it, Blake? Her sarcasm dripped heavy, her stance aggressive, ready to match him move for move. The truth, Blake said, his tone so calm it was deadly, is that you sat behind this desk for years hurling rocks at people, bringing them down, making snide comments about anyone who might not be leading a life just like yours. You call this entertainment? Joy's face flushed crimson, defiance on. I call it honesty, she shot back. Something you might want to try sometime. Blake shook his head slowly, and disappointment was etched in every line in his face. Honesty would be admitting you made up your mind about me before I even walked in here. You don't want a conversation, Joy. You want to pick a fight. Maybe I do, she said with defiance, her chin up, her stance unyielding. Maybe it's about time somebody called you on your act. The tension in the studio was electric. Eyes were glued to the confrontation, cameras captured every tick and gesture. Producers had given up trying to control the situation. This, after all, was live television gold, raw, unpredictable, explosive. Blake's gaze fell to Joy, his voice dropping to a deadly calm that somehow carried more weight than any shout. You want to call me out? Fine. Let's do this properly. You sit here every day criticizing people you've never met, places you've never been, experiences you've never had. You talk about small towns like they're some kind of joke, like the people who live there are beneath you. Joy leaned back defensively, but her tone remained combative. I never said they were beneath me. I said your portrayal of them is fake. My portrayal? Blake's voice rose, losing none of its authority. I didn't read about it in a book. I didn't watch it on television. I lived it. I grew up in a place where when a neighbor's barn burned down, 20 families showed up to rebuild it. Where the community rallies around someone who is sick or struggling. That's not fake. That's real life. Joy cut him off sharply. Oh, spare me the Norman Rockwell painting, Blake. Small towns have problems too, poverty, addiction, close-mindedness. But you never sing about those, do you? Only the pretty parts. Blake's fists clenched at his sides, knuckles whitening. You think I don't know about the hard parts? My hometown has faced factory closures, young people leaving, families losing everything. But those same people still look out for each other. They still have dignity. They still have heart. And yes, they still vote for politicians who keep them struggling. Joy shot back, voice rising to meet his intensity. But I suppose that's not something you want to talk about either, is it? The other hosts were waving frantically, signaling a commercial break, but the confrontation had taken on a life of its own. A runaway train that nobody could stop. There it is, Blake said quietly, the stillness of his voice only elevating its menace. The real agenda. This was never about my music or my authenticity. This is about politics. About the fact that you can't stand that millions of Americans don't think like you, don't vote like you, don't share your vision of how America should be. Those millions are being manipulated, Joy said sharply, by you, the media, politicians, by anyone who tells them what they want instead of what they need to know. Blake took a step closer, passion rising, controlled yet undeniable. Who decides that, Joy? Who decides what people need to know? You? The media? Politicians? Or maybe, just maybe, people are smart enough to decide for themselves? Joy slammed her hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Not when they're being manipulated by celebrity millionaires who pretend to be just like them. Blake didn't budge an inch, frozen right where he was, looking right at her. The studio collectively held its breath while he reached up and removed his cowboy hat, a motion chock full of silent meaning. You know what, Joy? His voice was eerily calm, the eye of the storm. You're absolutely right about one thing. I am a millionaire, I do live a different life now than I did growing up, Blake said, placing his cowboy hat on the table with deliberate precision. The gesture carried more weight than any raised voice could. But there's one thing you're dead wrong about. His eyes locked onto Joy's with laser intensity. I've never pretended to be anything other than exactly who I am. I've never lied about my success. I've never hidden my wealth. I've never claimed to be something I'm not. Can you say the same? For the first time, Joy's composure faltered. Her face went pale, the color draining from her cheeks as if Blake had struck her physically. What? What's that supposed to mean? Her voice was smaller, uncertain, no longer sharp and commanding. Blake's smile was cold, devoid of charm or humor. It means maybe before you start lecturing others about authenticity, you should take a long, hard look in the mirror. The studio fell into a heavy, uncomfortable silence. No one breathed. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, unsure whether to keep filming. Joy's face cycled through shock, confusion, anger, and finally, pure rage. How dare you, she whispered, welling up with rage. How dare you come onto my show and personally attack me? Blake leaned over slowly to pick up his hat and place it back on his head. Joy, this is The View, not the Joy Behar Show. I'm not attacking you personally. I'm responding to your personal attacks on me. You think you're so clever, don't you? Joy's voice rose again, shriller now, losing the controlled venom of before. Coming in here with your folksy wisdom and your ash routine. Let me tell you something, cowboy, I've been in this business longer than you've been wearing that ridiculous hat. Blake's eyebrow shot up, and his mouth flickered with amusement. This business? You mean the business of entertainment? Last I checked, we're both entertainers. The only difference is, I don't pretend my entertainment is more important than anyone else's. Joy straightened, voice going to a crescendo. My entertainment? I inform people, Blake. I educate them. I help them understand the world around them. What do? You help them escape from reality. And what's wrong with that? Blake asked calmly, his voice a stark contrast to Joy's escalating volume. What's wrong with giving people a few minutes of happiness? Helping them forget their troubles for a while? Joy laughed bitterly, harsh and jagged. Because while they are forgetting their troubles, those troubles are getting worse. While they listen to your songs about simpler times, the world is passing them by. Blake shook his head slowly, disappointment carved into every line of his face. Joy, you talk about informing and educating people, but all I've seen today is you trying to tear me down. Is that what you call education? Is that what you call helping people understand the world? I help people understand that people like you are selling them a fantasy. You're guilty. Joy snapped, her voice breaking slightly, frustration threatening to spill into tears. You keep people satisfied with less than they deserve. Blake watched her silently, something unreadable in his expression, more sadness than pity, tempered with understanding. Slowly, he began walking toward the edge of the set. You know what, Joy? I came here to talk about my music, to have a conversation with you and your colleagues. But clearly, you had a different agenda. Where are you going? Joy shrilled, panic rising high in her voice as she realized she was losing control. We're not finished here. Blake stopped, turned back, expression unreadable. Yes, we are. There's no point in continuing this conversation. The studio fell into stunned silence. Cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment. The confrontation was over, not with shouting, but with a quiet, unshakable assertion of self. Blake Shelton had walked in to promote an album, and walked out reminding everyone exactly who he was, and what he would never be. You've made it clear you don't want to discuss anything. You want to attack everything. Joy's voice became desperate, grasping for control. I want to discuss the truth, Blake. I want to discuss your responsibility as a public figure. My responsibility? Blake's voice was all incredulous. Joy, my responsibility is to my fans, to the people who buy my music and to come see me play. My responsibility is being honest to who I am and what I believe. I don't owe you or anybody else an apology for that. You owe it to the American people to stop feeding them this small-town mythology, he shouted, utterly bereft of composure. You owe it to them to stop pretending ignorance is bliss. Blake's face went stone cold. Every muscle in his jaw tightened, eyes hard as steel. And there it is, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. You just called millions of Americans ignorant. People who live in small towns, work hard, raise their families, and try to do right by their neighbors. You just called them ignorant. I did not say that. Joy protested, but her voice had no weight in it, stumbling upon his words. Yes, you did, Blake said forcefully, his finger pointed at her. And you know what? That tells me everything I need to know about you and your version of education and information. The other hosts sat frozen, their faces masks of shock. Whoopi had given up trying to intervene. Sarah looked as if she wanted to disappear into her chair. The studio was a powder keg and Blake Shelton was walking away while it detonated behind him. Just walk away? Joy called after him, voice cracking with desperation. You can't just run when someone challenges your beliefs. Blake stopped, turned back, cowboy hat casting a shadow over his eyes, stance wide and solid. Joy, you haven't challenged my beliefs. You've insulted me. You've insulted my fans. You've insulted millions of Americans who don't share your worldview. That's not a challenge, that's just mean-spirited. The truth is mean-spirited sometimes, Joy replied defiantly, chin lifted, unwilling to concede. Blake nodded slowly. You're right about that. But the truth is this show used to be about different perspectives having a conversation. Now, apparently, it's about one perspective shouting down all the others. With that devastating observation, Blake Shelton turned and walked off the view set. His boots echoed in the stunned silence. The audience sat frozen, mouths agape, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Behind the panel stood Joy Behar, red with anger and embarrassment, hands trembling slightly as she gripped the desk for support. Cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of her humiliation, every fleeting moment of the aftermath. Security moved quickly, though Blake wasn't causing a scene, he was simply leaving. Producers scrambled frantically, trying to salvage the remainder of the show. The control room erupted in controlled chaos, voices overlapping, all trying to make sense of the confrontation and its implications. The entire explosive exchange had lasted less than 20 minutes, but those 20 minutes would be replayed, analyzed, and debated for years. Clips went viral within hours. Social media exploded. News outlets covered it as a major story. America was divided once again, not just about politics, geography, or values, but about who was right in that studio and what the exchange revealed about the deeper fractures in society. What began as a routine promotional appearance had morphed into a cultural flashpoint. A moment when the carefully curated facade of polite entertainment was stripped away, replaced by raw, unfiltered confrontation. Blake Shelton had walked in as a country music star with an album to peddle. He walked out as a symbol, defiant, unyielding, and representative of millions of Americans who felt dismissed and judged by the entertainment establishment. Joy Behar, in particular, came into the day seemingly set on exposing some hypocrisy and left having revealed something about herself that no spin could erase. Was Blake right to walk off? Did Joy cross a line? Did the confrontation expose some fundamental truths about American society, or was it just another manufactured media controversy? The answers depend entirely upon whom you ask, where they're from, and how they see the America we live in versus the America we imagine.